Greedent is a big fella that often flies under the radar, but I'm gonna make it go crazy, and here's how. So first of all, Buddy's stats are not really doing it any favors, but it's got some big HP, sorta decent base 95 attack, and its insanely low base 20 speed actually kinda ends up helping it out. But one thing for sure is that the big fella can eat. It's got the pretty rare ability Cheek Pouch, which makes it so that when it eats a berry, it also restores a third of its max HP. So we're gonna first set up a curse to drop our speed, but boost our attack and defense. Then when we tank hits long enough to get into berry range, we pop a citrus. So we get the heal, and then Cheek Pouch activates to give us an extra third of our HP, and now we're boosted up and back to healthy range. Now it pulls out Body Press, which uses its boosted defense stat and damage calculation, and we can even get bigger damage using Terra Fighting. It also takes advantage of Gyro Ball, which has more power the slower we are, and thanks to the curse, our speed stat is like 10, which is hilarious and pretty powerful. We tie it all together with Knockoff for some good coverage, and Greedent is an absolute chonker that will get out of hand on you. Alright, look, I've always felt like there's been some unnecessary hate toward our tubby squirrel friend. People just do not like Greedent, so today we're going to show this thing some love, and if that sounds like a fun time to you, you should consider hitting that subscribe button. I'm on my way to 400k, I'd love to have you help out as part of the journey. But most of all, Greedent is going to be helping out today. This is the kind of guy that I'm always very happy that I brought. It seems like it puts in more work than you expect it to, and you're always glad to have the thing around. Now what you're also glad to have around is today's sponsor, Surfshark VPN. Look, Surfshark, in my opinion, is the best option for a VPN, and if you're not using a VPN on the internet in 2025, I don't even know what you're doing at this point. It'd be like using a Greedent without a berry. While there's a lot of cool benefits from using a VPN, my favorite is accessing streaming services from other countries. When it feels like there's nothing good on Netflix, you can pop on the Surfshark to be able to change your IP to a different country and have access to the country's entire catalog of shows, which are often better than the American ones. Another huge benefit is public Wi-Fi dangers. Whenever you connect to a public Wi-Fi network, you're getting a little sketchy. But with Surfshark, your data is always protected so you don't become a victim of identity theft or fraudulent purchases, and in general, it's really nice to be able to connect to any network and not have to worry about anything. By the way, the sickest part ever is that one Surfshark subscription works on unlimited devices you can share with anyone you want, and if for some reason you and your family own 1,000 iPhones, you're good to go with just one subscription. There's also a product called Alternate ID, which allows you to instantly generate an identity, which allows you to hide your real email and address to keep your personal info hidden. This thing spits out email accounts and fake addresses that are ready to use instantly because ain't nobody wants those spam messages. There's literally no risk to trying out Surfshark as they offer a 30-day money-back guarantee, and you can click the link in my description to use code Haydunn at checkout and get yourself 4 extra months of the Surfshark VPN for free. And with that, let's get into the battle. Alright, so my opponent, as expected, is going to lead off with the Galvantula. This is the type of bastard that's always going to be here to set up some sticky webs. So I specifically lead off with the lawnmower. Now I'm thinking I can trick this thing a choice scarf. Surely it's going to click that sticky web turn 1. That's just what these spiders do. And if I give it a scarf, I can make it a whole lot easier to deal with later. And it probably has a focus sash that I can use. So I go for the trick. I say, hey, I found a scarf that you would just look amazing in. I figure you can take a look at this thing. I give it a choice scarf. I end up taking its focus sash. I say, go ahead and set up your sticky web, and I'll be out of here. But it goes for the bug buzz turn 1. Now that is not what I expected, and luckily, at least I had that focus sash. That's kind of funny. And well, I'm already knocked down to 1 on row to mow here. Not what I was looking for. But the good news is, at least, you know, it's a predictable spider now. I know that it's locked into bug buzz with that choice scarf, and I'm pretty free to bring in Quaquaval here. The reason for that is because I'm Assault Vest. I can eat up a bug buzz all day long out here, and I have great coverage against a lot of their team. So as they just stay in, going for another bug buzz here doesn't do anything. And at this point, I can go for some Aqua Step action. I don't know what exactly their switch into this is going to want to be. I'm feeling like it's going to be a Alolan Ninetales, but I'm also thinking if I go for an Aqua Step, I can do some chip to the thing, and then it might be in range for a close combat. So they're essentially forced to swap out there, save the Galvantula for later, and they do go right into the Ninetales, who comes in looking majestic. More importantly, it sets up a snow warning, which gives this thing a physical defensive boost. But as I go for an Aqua Step, it's still going to do a nice chunk to the thing, and then I figure after a speed boost, I can then outspeed, and then a close combat should be in range to kill this thing. So I figure I'm going to click that right off the bat. And as they do stay in, I grab the kill early, and that is actually huge, because this thing not being able to set up an Aurora Veil it's going to make my life so much easier for the remainder of the match. So down goes an Alola Ninetales super early. Not only that, but then I get a Moxie boost. So all of a sudden, Peacock over here has a free Dragon Dance, essentially. I get a speed boost and an attack boost. And we're kind of rolling here. So as they bring in Gliscor, here's the thing. I can easily go ahead and hit him with some frozen sausage toes. I have the triple axle. But of course, as you know, classic Gliscor fashion, they're going to go for a protect. Going to scout out what I'm going to do, but also gives them an opportunity to get their Toxic Orb. And as they see the triple axle, my plans are kind of ruined on being able to do that. Now, they don't really have much that wants to switch into the Quaquaval here. So I'm thinking, if I'm them, I probably go for a Terra here. And I'm thinking if I can catch him with a Terra normal to like boost up their facade, I can close combat and then get myself a free kill. And then all of a sudden, Peacock is just going crazy. Now, they do go for the Terra. However, it's going to be the Terra Water, which is a bit unfortunate because as at least, you know, close combat's going to do much more than a triple axle would. It is not quite going to be able to kill. It just barely misses, which is unfortunate. But as I get another defensive boost, now my problem becomes that at -2, is not going to allow me to live in Earthquake, and then down goes my friggin' Wet Peacock. So at least here's the upside. We forced them to use the Terra, which is always great, and we got a fantastic amount of chip on the Gliscor, so that feels pretty nice overall. Now I've got a couple opportunities on what I might want to bring in here. I'm thinking Mew. Now, if you have not seen my video on this Mew, I recommend you check it out. This thing's a doozy. Basically, the plan is to go for an Imprison, sealing moves. I lock them in with a Fire Spin, and then I transform into them, basically allowing them to not even play the game. They won't be able to click any attacks, and will be forced to struggle. So Gliscor feels like a good one to try to transform into, just because Gliscor is just a monster, but they end up switching into a Galvantula here. Now, we know that Vantula is going to be Choice Scarf, and as I do get that Imprison off, I'm not going to be faster than it, and I don't really want to use my Terra here to be able to live a Bug Buzz, and Galvantula is not the best one to turn into. So I figure I'm going to abort the plan on the freaking Mew. The bad thing about that is they know kind of what this Mew is trying to do, and that foils my plan just a little bit. But knowing that they probably click a Bug Buzz here, I'm going to go into the Garchomp. But they click the freaking Sticky Web, and now that's annoying because I lost my Rapid Spinner in the Quaquaval already, and now I have to deal with the Sticky Web. And now this place is just all sticky, so, you know, my sensory overload is not great. But I figure they're forced to swap here. So this gives me a decent opportunity to set up my Stealth Rock here. I can punish some switches, but in general, Stealth Rock is going to be really good to have in the back. So, as they end up swapping into the Gator, Feraligatr is a bit of a problem here. Looking the Garchomp in the face, this thing's given strong vibes that it's going to click Dragon Dance here. But I have a plan, and here it is. I'm going to switch into Weirdier, and for a couple different reasons, right? So first of all, I bring in Weirdier, who just comes with the immediate aura of confusion. People are like, the hell is this thing even going to do? Now, I do get caught up in a Sticky Web, which is unfortunate as hell. But I do get an Intimidate, which is great, because surely they're going to Dragon Dance here. So now they're at -1 attack. They do go for the Dragon Dance, brings them back to neutral attack. However, after that speed and attack boost from that, Weirdier is going to be like, you know what, I will be having that as well. And I get myself a little Mirror Herb action, copying the stat boost. So now I'm at +1 speed and +1 attack. Actually, I'm at neutral speed because of the Sticky Web. But regardless, now I know I should be able to take a Liquidation from the thing, but it has Crunch. And yeah, Weirdier, even with neutral for some reason, I guess just doesn't live a Crunch there, and that really busts my reindeer balls. So that is a bit unfortunate, but look, I have 4 Mons left, one of them being a Rotom with 1 HP. But now, the Tubby Squirrel is ready. I bring in the Greedent here because, look, here's the thing. Sticky Web doesn't matter to the guy, obviously, because actually that helps me with Gyro Ball. But first of all, I can bring this thing in on any physical attacker. Now, since I had that Intimidate, it does not have an attack boost, and I'm free to set up a Curse against the thing. A physical attacker is the best scenario to bring this thing in on, and as they go for another Dragon Dance here, going to bring it to +2 attack, +1 speed, but I get myself a Curse, which is great because dropping my speed even further, but also gives me an attack boost and a defense boost, so we're pretty neutral against this thing's Dragon Dance, and I can take attacks from it all day long. And I figure I also should probably start to get some damage on the guy because Feraligatr is the kind of fella you don't want to leave unaddressed for too long. It's gonna become a problem. So I decide to go for the Terra Fighting. Now that's just to be able to boost up my body press to be a 2-hit KO on the thing. but I know that I should be able to take an attack, and it might not even knock me down to citrus range. So they do go for a liquidation here, just their highest damage. It does do less than half, which is like kind of good but kind of bad because it doesn't allow me to get my citrus berry. But as I now sit on him, it is going to be able to do over half, which is great. The fat squirrel gets itself some nice damage there. Now look, they go for another liquidation. We know we can live it, and here's the best part. It activates the citrus berry as we live it with 13 because we're defensive as hell. I get the benefit of the citrus berry, but then also Cheek Pouch comes in, gets us back to a very healthy range, and not only that, but then a body press is going to be able to finish off the Feraligatr. So that was a great win condition for them, and getting rid of Feraligatr is the threat of being swept out of the way. So not only that, but looking at what they have left, they're going to have to really touch me on the special side if they want to do any damage. Just with one curse, this thing is so defensive. So first of all, they go into Cleaver. Now this thing is not going to be able to do much. I figure, I don't know what kind of coverage Buddy's got with the Cleaver, but as they click the close combat as their biggest damage, it does actually nothing. And that is amazing because after the defense drop that comes with that, a Gyro Ball, I am so incredibly slow that absolutely roasts and toasts the Cleaver. So that thing is gone. Just delete the Cleaver without even taking anything. And now we're in a great spot. Looking at what they have left, the real only special attacker is going to be the Galvantula. But if it's not running Thunder, if it's running any other coverage than Thunder, we might be able to take an attack. So here's the thing. They decide, first of all, to go into the Gliscor. Now, this thing is not looking super healthy, and I'm figuring if I'm them, I probably click Protect here. So I'm going to try to capitalize on that. And instead of attacking, get up another free curse. Now, they do Protect, which is amazing. I go ahead and curse at him like a sailor, just yelling profanities out here. And now we're at -2 speed, +2 defense, +2 attack. And this thing is insane. Actually, -3 speed because of Sticky Web. Doesn't really matter. The squirrel has a speed stat of like 2 at this point. So now I figure I can just body press. And as they swap out of the Gliscor, they figure, uh-oh, this is probably not going to work out. With more defense boost, it's not going to be able to touch me. And now they realize Galvantula is pretty going to be their best bet here. So in comes the spider. It does take big Stealth Rock chip, which is important. And body press, unfortunately, is resisted. So it is going to live. If that killed there, that was going to be insane. But here's the thing. I consider switching on a Thunder, but then I realized, screw it, I'm just going to let it roll. But they go for the Discharge, which we are able to live. Buddy is not working with the Thunder, and they want to try to get a Parachance. They do not get it. A Body Press is then going to be able to finish out the Galvantula. And now they done messed up. The squirrel is too powerful at this point. Even at this health, I mean, might be able to live something from a Gliscor being the boosted defense. So I'm just going to go for a body press here. They decide to predict me to maybe go for another curse, and they click the Swords Dance, trying to bring the match back in setting up the Gliscor. But I do not go for the boost, and a body press finishes off the Gliscor. And the most unexpected mon on my squad oftentimes is the one you got to worry about, and the Greedent is just on an absolute rampage over here, eating things up like the freaking berry. So their final mon is going to end up being Arcanine. Hisuian Arcanine comes in, takes some big Stealth Rock. Now here's the thing, even at the defensive boost, Hisuian Arcanine hurts, and they can go for a Flare Blitz here. Does sadly finish me off, but not before the squirrel damage was done. So us and all of our chins are going to go down there. But luckily for us, we do still have the Garchomp in the back, and most of the time, Hisuian Arcanine is going to be choiced, and they really don't have much that they can do against a defensive Chomp. So we bring in young Charles, and even with the Sticky Web, all we have to do is just take a Flare Blitz, which they're going to have to worry about a Rocky Helmet and Rough Skin. But I can hit him with an Earthquake because they don't have any ability to tear out of that. Turns out they just click the Extreme Speed, doesn't do anything, but does more to them in return from touching me. And then I can finish it off with an Earthquake, and that is going to be the end of the game. So, again, you don't expect this squirrel to do much, but, I mean, the guy comes in and just puts in work. You cannot deny that it's actually pretty sweet. So that's going to do it for game number 1. Thought that was just a fun and interesting game. But that is now going to bring us into match number 2. So look, if you've stuck around this far into the video, I will ask, hey, click that like button, or my squirrel's going to come and eat all your citrus berries. And nobody, you don't want that. So let's get into it. All right, so this time my opponent's going to hit me with the lead Meowscarada, and I'm kind of fine with that, because here's the thing. I do go with the fast Volt Switcher in the Scarf Rotom, and with this, I'm happy to see this, because I know that they can't really kill me, and if they outspeed me, it's going to show that that thing is Scarf. Now, as I get my Volt Switch off before they attack, that tells me that it is not going to be Scarf, and at least I know that this thing's not going to... I don't have to worry about Buddy being just quick as hell. So, Knowing that if I'm them, I probably click a U-turn here. I decide to bring in the Chomp, and Chomp is not... You don't want to touch Charles. Buddy is rough. And they do go for that U-turn, which is great, because it makes physical contact, touches the rough skin, touches the rocky helmet, all of a sudden you're just at half health. However, it has a citrus berry, and that's kind of annoying, but hey, at least it's not going to have that citrus later on, so they do get to swap out here into whatever they want. But as I'm chilling here with the Chomp, my main goal is to set up some Stealth Rock and then blow up and act like I don't know nobody. So it turns out they're going to go into the Incineroar here, who does get the Intimidate, but also as an I'm not really worried about what Incineroar can do. I have a big Earthquake against it, and I figure maybe they go for a Terra. It turns out they do. So I'm just chilling here eating some snacks, ready to set up my Stealth Rock for later. But they are going to bust out the Terra Fairy, which is going to now... you'll allow it to live a potential Earthquake, switch into Dragon Claws, but also look ridiculous with a heart on its head. So I do outspeed. I'm a fast shark fellow that flies for like a jet, which is something I always forget that this thing can do. But I get up my Stealth Rock, which is great, but it also turned out to bust out the Terra Blast. Things got the Terra Blast Fairy, and just from the start, I'm feeling like Buddy's working with some quirky sets that I just do not expect at all, which makes things interesting. But at this point, I lived, so I'm like, you know what? Garchomp's not going to be able to have too much utility. I decided to just go for an Earthquake for some chip on the thing, and they expected me to switch, so they go for a Parting Shot, which is great, because now Garchomp lives to see another day, but the Parting Shot, obviously dampens my offenses here, and now the Incineroar gets to come back another day. So it turns out they're going to go Sonic here, which is definitely going to be the Alolan Sandslash. And I'm not going to lie, I'm a little bit worried about this thing. First of all, I know what their team comp is trying to do. I see the Galarian Slowking in the back, and that means Chilly Reception is likely there to be able to set up the snow for this thing, and then it's going to be a fast sweeper. But as it's in here with no snow, it's a little bit less scary. And also, if I'm them, maybe you click Swords Dance here, probably not. But I'm going to roll the dice anyway. I decided to bring in the Weirdier, who comes in, gets an Intimidate, which allows me to then live an Ice Spinner nicely. But it's not gonna. I'd really try to get that Mirror Herb to activate on this thing to get stored powers, but I at least kind of negate what that thing can do, and they realize they should probably save it for later because it needs some snow. So they now are gonna bring in Gliscor, because literally everybody uses the Gliscor and they're all exactly the same, and nobody is creative. But I go for an Agility here, and the fun part, literally Weirdier is so fun because nobody knows what the hell Buddy's gonna be working with. But as I now get myself to +2 speed, I'm all of a sudden faster than everything, other than the Sandslash and Snow. So I decide I'm going to go for a second Agility here. I'm probably going to get knocked off, but I should be able to live it. And then with 2 Agilities, I might have a chance to do some damage with a stored power. But in general, I'm just faster than everything. So they knock off my Mirror Herb, which is expected, and then get some Poison Heal and brings it back to full because screw this thing. But now I figure I'm just going to go for a stored power. With 2 Agilities, it's not going to be able to grab a kill, which sucks. But I do some big chip, and then they kill me with a U-turn. So not Weirdier's day just quite yet. But trust me, this thing, I'm gonna get it to pop off on somebody. It's just a matter of time. So they kill me with a U-turn, but I get some pretty respectable chip on the Gliscor. And as they kill me with a U-turn, the great thing is now they can bring it. They have to switch into something, and then I can figure out a matchup. So they are gonna go Meowscarada here, and trying to figure out what my best bet is. The main goal of this team is to try to set up this Mew. Again, if you haven't seen the Mew video, please go check it out. It was a really fun one. But I go into Mew here because thing is this. I bait this thing to click a knockoff, and then I can imprison it and then transform into it after that. So I figure, might as well go for it. I'm going to turn into a Fairy type to be able to live a knockoff here, which is great. Mew with a heart on his head is also just ridiculous. And it's time to see if I can get Mew to do something. Now the bad thing would be is if they U-turn, and they do U-turn, because why not go for the pivot there? So it transforms into the Bug type. I do live it because of the Terra. And now I'm thinking, whatever they switch into here, I'm just going to see if we can get Mew to do what it does. And to my surprise, it actually works out nicely because they bring in the Galarian Slowking. Now this thing is just always a damn menace. And I'm willing to, a lot of the time, trade this Mew for a one-on-one kill. Especially against something that's defensive like a Galarian Slowking. If I could trap this fella in, I'm fine with being able to take care of it the old-fashioned way. So I get the Imprison off. Now I'm able to go for the Fire Spin, which is great. I'm thinking I should be able to live a Sludge Bomb if possible, but they click the Future Sight thinking maybe I swap out here. So the Future Sight comes through, that's fine. That gives me more time here. Now I've got 2 of the 3 steps already done with this fella, which is the Fire Spin and the Imprison, and now all I gotta do is click Transform. And here's the funny part. So I'm gonna Transform, which turns me into them, obviously blocking all of their moves since, my moves are their moves. And as they try to click a chillingly bad joke, they go for the Chilling Reception. Chili Reception. It doesn't work. They think that maybe they can get around that Fire Spin. Nope, not today. Imprison blocks that. And now we've got the Slowking matchup that we were looking for. So, looking at this thing's moveset, one thing I note is it does not have the poison coverage. You got Future Sight and Psychic. So as I go for a Future Sight, I'm thinking maybe, you know, that's fine. I'm just going to go for that. There's nothing it can do over there. This is the funny part about this strategy is just like, hey, I would like you to not be able to play the game over there. So they have to struggle, take some damage against me. As I take their Future Sight, it does bring me down below half here, which activates my Citrus Berry. And I'm pretty healthy, but it's over there eating some Black Sludge, and this is a hilarious matchup, because as I'm looking at this, I'm like, you know what, I can just stay in here as long as I want. I can continue to click Recovers, or Slack Off, and just let this thing slowly die. This is one way to guarantee that a Galarian Slowking does not screw you over, because these things are always switching out, getting Regenerators, coming back in, setting up Future Sights which hurt. But it's way more fun when they just are forced to click Struggle against you. So they go for another Struggle there, hits itself with the Recoil, and then takes some more Fire Spin. And I'm just over here at basically full HP, able to continue to click Slack Offs or potentially go for damage. Now here's the problem. The glaring issue with me being this thing is that I only have the ability to touch stuff with Psychic damage. Now, that is a problem considering they have a Dark type over there. But as they finish themselves off with one more Struggle, which I think is funny. I click Psychic, probably should have been Slack Off there, doesn't really matter. I figure I cannot touch Meowscarada, but I'm able to grab a 1-for-1 kill with the Slowkings. I'm happy with that anyway. But now as they bring in the Gliscor, I'm like, you know what? This is fine. I can go for a Future Sight here just for later. It's never a bad idea to just pop a Future Sight up there. Plus I figure it's probably going to click Protect anyway. And honestly, I think their plan with this Gliscor is just to bring it in, go for a Protect, get a turn of Poison Heal, and try to make it as healthy as possible for later. And that's a lot of the time, whenever you think you have the Gliscor down into easy killable range, it just protects twice, and then all of a sudden it's just healthy from its damn Poison Heal. So I figure there's not much I can really do here. I figure they probably end up going into the Meowscarada here, but they have the Poison Jab. They stay in and go for the Poison Jab, which doesn't do much damage, but what it does do is gets the damn poison, which is annoying. Now I figure that's fine. I'm just slacking off over here. Which brings me back to full, but now being poisoned every turn I take a little bit of chip. But look, anytime I can get this Mew to actually do something, I'm just here for the ride. And I also realize it's probably not going to be able to get it off twice because people realize what's happening by that point. So they now go for a U-turn, and again, the problem is that they have a damn Dark type against a guy that only can touch stuff with Psychic. So they realize that, switching into the Meowscarada here, it is at about half health, but I cannot touch it with a Psychic. So I got a couple options here. First of all, I could potentially switch. It takes the Future Sight attack, doesn't affect it. I could potentially switch, but Mew just does not hold a whole lot of value here. So I'm also here to be a troll anyway. My main... main thing with this set is to be a troll. So I figure I'm just going to click a Slack Off anyway. They decide to then go for the knockoff. I was really hoping that they were going to click a move that wasn't Dark there so that they would turn into a different type, but they don't. They go for the knockoff. I then Slack Off all that damage, and I'm just sitting over here trolling with this Mew because it's literally, this might be the trolliest set in Pokemon ever. So bad thing is about this Mew set is that when you transform, you only have 5 PP of everything, which is oftentimes enough, but you just, you know, it's something to think about. But I decide to stay in because I'm a troll. I go for another Future Sight here. I know that if they stay in with this Meowscarada, it's obviously not gonna, you know, do anything to it. But again, this Mew doesn't hold a whole lot of value for me anyway. It doesn't have really attacking moves as a Mew, and I'd need to transform into something, so I figured, screw it. I'm gonna continue to Slack Off. But now it's time to figure out an exit plan. Obviously, this is not gonna work long term. I'm gonna die. So One thing I can do is obviously I can switch out, but then something has to deal with the knockoff, which is unfortunate. So I decide instead to click the Chili Reception. So here's the deal. Now they realize they can go for Flower Tricks, which always crits and gets a little bit more damage. But I am here to tell a chillingly bad joke. So I do end up getting out of here. The funny part is, since I copy this thing's Regenerator, Mew actually will be able to come in healthier later on. But I go for the Chili Reception, which is a way that I can swap out without anything having to come in on a knockoff. But the problem with that is that I set up the snow for their Alolan Ninetales. So luckily it's not going to stick around for too long, but I realized that that is kind of a problem. So Future Sight doesn't do anything against the damn Meowscarada. And as I bring in the Rotom-Mow, I know that I am faster. I can outspeed with the Choice Scarf. and a Leaf Storm is going to be able to do it. So down goes the Meowscarada. Now the glaring problem in the room is, of course, that of Alolan Sandslash, who now has its Slush Rush ability, able to double its speed, and I am going to have to swap out here. Now, as they, of course, are going to end up bringing this thing in, they want to try to make use of the snow turns that they have, but since I wasn't Icy Rock or anything, it's just not going to stick around that long anyway, so I'm not super worried. Now, I do realize that Scarf Rotom is always an asset, so I obviously am going to swap out here after going for a Leaf Storm, and now feels like a good time to bring in the Garchomp, just because if they Swords Dance, they waste, you know, a Snow Turn, but if they Ice Spinner, they touch me. So as they do click an Ice Spinner here, they make physical contact. Does kill the Garchomp, but this is fine. It's just a sack switch anyway. It takes some Rocky Helmet and Rough Skin, and that is a whole lot of chip, and that puts it in range for like a Thunderbolt from Rotom mode to kill it later. Now, obviously, I can't do it quite yet, and that's just because the damn snow is still up. So looking at what I've got left, I got to try to find what my best win condition might be, and got to try to play your cards right. So I'm going to go Quaquaval here because I know that I can take attacks from this thing all day, and then I can start to Aqua Step and really just snowball out of control. But I'm worried about an Aqua Step killing, so instead I go for a close combat as they Shadow Claw. Trying to roll for a high crit probably. Does take care of the Sandslash. Boom, all of a sudden, Slush Rushy Boy, no longer a problem. And not only that, but then I get myself a little Moxie boost with the Quaquaval. This thing is so incredibly good. Moxie and Aqua Step and just everything about this mon is freaking unfair, but that's why we like it. So now they can swap into whatever they want, and the reason why Quaquaval can't really do too much is because of this damn fairy. In comes Primarina, and the problem with Primarina is I also don't have much that can really swap into this thing, and Greedent's role a lot of the time is just to be a fat body to switch into things. So I figure I'm going to bring in the Pancake here. We're looking hungry and ready, and as they go for a Dazzling Gleam, it's going to do a little less than half, which is great. I kind of brought this in to be able to tank attacks and maybe get into Citrus range early and then just hit it with the Gyro Ball and not be able to set up. But as they end up swapping out here, it's feeling like all of a sudden Greedent, as this thing often does, might just become more of a problem than they're expecting. So as I go for the Gyro Ball, they end up bringing in the Gliscor. Not going to be able to do much without a boost. And, you know, that's unfortunate because it just heals all that back. But with this matchup here, this is exactly the kind of matchup I'm looking for. I figure I probably am going to get Toxic. But if I can set up some curses, that's going to be pretty good. Now, they go for a Protect, which is even better because that gives me a free turn of a curse here. So just like that, we got +1 attack and defense. Also, do not sleep on that minus speed for the Gyro Balls. But this thing continues to Poison Heal. And now I got to try to get something going here. So the bad news is one of the downfalls of Greedent and its Cheek Pouch is that Knockoff really hose you. They go for the Knockoff, which is wildly unfortunate because that gets rid of my Citrus Berry before I'm able to consume it. And a Gyro Ball also does not kill. So now I'm just raw dogging the Greedent without even having to deal with, or without even having the benefit of its Citrus Berry. But I've got a curse, and I'm like, you know what? The only thing that can really touch me over there is going to be something like that Primarina. As soon as this big squirrel gets up a curse, physical attacks are just not doing much. So they do Protect here, unfortunately. But if I can get through this Gliscor, I'm going to be in a pretty good spot here. And Greedent, even at just a half health, I'm feeling relatively confident. So they're now just going to click the U-turn here, able to pivot while also getting a little bit of chip damage. And I'm thinking they have to go into Primarina. It's the only mon that they can hit on the special side. So they do go Primarina here. And I'm thinking this is perfect. They take some Stealth Rock chip. I click the Gyro Ball, which is a neutral hit, which is great. And that's able to take care of it. So just like that, they should have saved that thing for a free swap in. And Primarina goes down, which is sick as hell. So now they've got 2 mons left. It's going to be Incineroar along with that Gliscor. And both of these fellas are going to be physical attackers. So it comes in, does get an Intimidate, which is annoying, but as they go for a Fake Out. Also important note, Greedent has a sweet animate. Whenever you make contact with the thing, berries fly off it, which is kind of a fun little touch. But now they click a Terra Blast. Probably should be anything other than like a Flare Blitz, but Terra Blast, you know, doesn't do much because it's going to hit me on the physical side. We absolutely eat it up. And luckily for us, since they are Fairy type, a Gyro Ball is going to finish it off. And boom, just like that, we didn't expect the Greedent to be able to pop off, but now we've gotten ourselves in a spot where Greedent is the win condition that we did not expect. So now their final mon is going to be this Gliscor. And I don't know why, but this Greedent just always has a time where we're just up against freaking Gliscors. But I'm going to continue to match Gyro Ball because at this range it kills, but they are going to click their Protect. And while their highest damage will be something like an Earthquake, I think I might be able to live one of them. And this is a hilarious match in which I didn't even get to use my Citrus or my Cheek Pouch, but still, Sometimes all you gotta have is just a lot of HP and a curse boost. So now they go for a poison jab, and that doesn't do anything. I don't know why you don't click Earthquake there, but I live it. I do get poison. Maybe they try to get the poison. Regardless, I'm able to hit him with a Jumper Ball, and they are in range this time with a crit to be able to take care of it. So while I do get poison and go down that next turn, Greedent is the GOAT and is not letting that happen. So that's going to be the end of it. Greedent is very fun to use, and it's just so frustrating to go up against. And we just a little pancake loving friend over here. So thank you guys very much for watching. I do appreciate all the support, and I will catch you next time. Peace out.